Hello, welcome back to our Oscars nominee recap. We're on episode 9. Thank you. We were in a marathon, and at this point, we were watching Nickel Boys.
Nickel Boys.
Nickel Boys.
This is based off a novel,
Yes.
which I found out was a Pulitzer Prize winner.
This was based off a movie known as Holes.
It's so much like Holes. It really is. There's
Holes is a
a
better
lot
movie.
of similarities. Okay, we're just gonna get right into it then.
I mean, that's why we're here. I describe this movie as like you go to a restaurant and order a bunch of appetizers. They're all very tasty, but they're not a complete meal.
Yeah, I'll
Like,
100% agree.
A bunch of cool scenes, individual little character moments, but it just did not feel rounded.
I have a real problem with the first person perspective. I don't know why. Some movies can do it. Hardcore Henry is one of the few that I'm like, that was first person the entire way, but it's very like fast paced. It's very like just fun and dumb and action.
Yeah.
This one, it's like you would see a scene and it'd go to a person's eyes, and then you would see a scene and it'd go to the other guy's eyes. And I get why they did it that way. I know they wanted to do it
This
for a reason.
this movie screamed like Oscar bait to me.
It did for me too.
They're like, we're doing it 4:3, and we're doing it in first person. Oh, it's 4:3 aspect ratio, by the way.
Oh yeah, it is.
Which doesn't make sense because you don't see the world in square.
Yeah.
Your eyes are a wide view. So it's first person point of view. Why are you looking at a square?
Hmm.
You have peripheral vision. Like,
Yeah.
didn't make sense. Besides that, they had a bunch of weird moments, weird artistic moments where like dialogue would repeat randomly. There was weird like
You would see the same scene, but from the other person's point of view.
there were times where it just repeated with the same point of view.
Really?
Like in the bar, the
Oh,
line
wait,
repeated
yeah.
twice.
Yeah, that's right.
Then like alligators would randomly show up. A donkey showed up at one point. We were just like artistic, like what does this mean? And it doesn't mean anything. It's just it's Oscar bait. That's what it feels like.
It really did. And I didn't want to not like this movie in this. I don't want to not like any of these movies. You know,
Yeah.
I wanted to like Amelia Perez. I wanted to be the one person who was like, this is good. It's terrible. It's not. It's a 1 out of 10.
You keep going back to Amelia Perez,
Because
man.
it's terrible. Why was it nominated? But I just don't see the engagement. This movie's very long. Very long. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it feels like it. Feels like it the entire way. I felt
Yeah.
the Brutalist moved quicker.
This had one of those problems where you could mix the scenes and you couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
Like jumble up the timeline and you couldn't tell.
Yeah. And they do kind of switch back and forth on the timeline every once in a while, because
Yeah.
they'll cut randomly to way in the future whenever he's
Mhm.
older, and then they'll cut to even farther in the future and you see he has some gray in his hair, and then it's just
Yeah. It's all over
they'll
the
talk
place.
about and you only see everything from these two characters' points of view.
Yeah.
I don't remember their names. I feel bad.
Turner
Turner.
and it's on the tip of my tongue. It's not Hiram.
It's not Hiram.
I
Oh my gosh. Elwood.
Elwood, thank you.
Elwood. So Elwood and Turner, who are just supposed to be these two best friends at the prison, but you don't.
Oh yeah, they were at like a children's like work camp.
Oh yeah, we never really said what this movie's
It
about.
was like a juvie work camp.
Pretty much, it's Holes.
It's Holes.
It's literally Holes. If you've seen Holes, they go. This kid gets into a car, that's stolen when
he
he's
didn't
about
know
to
it
go
was
to college.
stolen. He was
didn't
literally
know.
hitchhiking.
But then they put him in juvie for that, and people at this juvie camp get really mistreated, and
Yeah.
they have to work their butts off all day, every day.
Except
And-
the times when they don't and they're just sitting there lazily painting, but not really. And nobody cares.
Well, okay, now that part I will argue. I feel like that was one of the jobs where it's like nobody was really around watching them.
I get they're on like the owner's front porch.
I think it was the owner's wife, and I don't think the owner was home.
But still, it's just like
Yeah, no, I know.
if they're going to emphasize that this is like a hard camp, why would they put scenes like that in?
Yeah, no, I agree. This
Like-
movie, it just didn't keep my attention
The
the way it
tone-
should have.
The tone kept bouncing all over the place.
Yeah.
It was like a tone of this mystery with him like being older, discovering what happened to like everybody.
Yeah, and trying to come forward and prove.
And then it had the part of like suffering, and then it had another tone of like just having a good old time with the boys,
having a good old time at Nickel Camp.
and it would jump back and forth wildly. Like one scene they're getting whipped, the next scene they're like eating ice cream and having a good old time. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah. Which I kind of just want to go ahead and get into spoilers, if that's cool. Because
Sure.
There's a few things I want to talk about. I don't really have much else to say about this movie.
Yeah.
But there's
the
a few
characters
scenes,
are pretty shallow.
They're very bland.
There's like only one real character, and that's the
Mhm.
grandma.
Oh, yeah.
But all the other characters are very it feels shallow and bland.
Okay. 5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, 5.
It's a very middle of the road movie.
Yeah.
The performances are good, but
Not great.
yeah. So there's a scene in this movie where they are basically seeing a conversation that they're not supposed to see. And
Mhm.
it's one of the counselors or the guards at the juvie camp telling one of the kids who's a boxer to go down in the second match.
Yeah,
or
throw the
fight,
'cause
basically.
there's money being bet on this fight.
Yeah. And then he doesn't do it. And you can see the counselor get all mad and stuff. But no repercussions happen.
At least not that we see.
Yeah. And it's like,
And that's the problem with it being first person like that.
yeah. And they hyped up, not hyped up, but they like were really showing like, okay, he needs to do this. And this counselor's kind of a jerk. Like if he doesn't do it, something's going to happen. And then you never see from these characters. And the characters were so forgettable besides Elwood and Turner.
Yeah.
That if they said their name later on, like if they did happen to mention that character, I don't remember. Now, granted, it could have been because we'd watched 2 other movies beforehand, like back to back, and this, like, we hadn't eaten anything at this point. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm getting to the point of where I'm like ready for a break longer than 10
8
minutes.
hours in with like no food. You know?
Yeah. But the last movie I loved so much that I'm like, I don't think it was just that. I think this movie was just genuinely slow and kind of boring.
It was funny. There's a scene where he's put in like the sweat box.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, he looked like mildly wet. Like I could have went outside and been like on a hot day and like 5 minutes been that sweaty.
Yeah.
They could have rubbed some baby oil on him or something. Maybe Diddy took all the oil. Who knows? They ran out of baby oil.
No, not the baby oil.
God,
I want to watch.
He looks like just a little bit wet. He's not like dripping with sweat like you would think he would be.
I want to watch that documentary on HBO so bad. The Fall of Diddy.
Fall of Diddy.
That's just such a funny name. So I guess the only other thing to really talk about is the big twist at the end.
But it wasn't even like it was a twist, but not like okay. Like it was just like sure.
The part that made it feel like a bigger twist to me, I think, was the part whenever he was at the bar with the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But just before we say what the twist was, I'm going to say this. He mentions to his friend or to the main character, like, hey, and who was that one guy you were always hanging out with and stuff? And then they don't say his name.
Mm.
And so that made it feel like, okay, that's why he totally didn't want to have that conversation, because he didn't want to be like, oh, I'm actually him. So basically, the big twist is Elwood, the main character from the beginning of the movie, gets shot when they try and escape. And Turner, his friend, goes to his grandmother because he actually makes it out. And
basically adopts his identity.
Yeah, because Turner didn't
Becomes
really
Elwood.
have a life.
Turner didn't have any family or nothing. He just
and so he becomes Elwood.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the big twist of the movie, which I thought I didn't see coming, to be fair.
Yeah, but it just felt like, why though? Like it could have been Elwood and been just as impactful. It could have been Turner that just kept the name Turner, been just as impactful.
I gotta admit, I think the twist is actually what brought it up to a 5 for me.
Really?
Yeah, because before that, it was just like, this is really nothing special. Like, at least that kind of gave it a little bit of,
I guess, yeah.
I wasn't expecting it, you know?
Yeah.
And it did a good job at not making it to where, oh, that doesn't make sense. Where it's like, oh, when you think about it, it actually does make sense, because he never got like you never really saw his face when he was an older guy.
Yeah.
You know, even in a mirror or anything.
I feel like this movie would have done better if they really emphasized the death part of it. Because they kept talking about how boys kept dying and disappearing.
Yeah.
But they never showed it.
Like if they would have made some more friends at the camp,
And one of them just disappeared.
Yeah, and
or
it's like
they saw one die or something. No, that doesn't. None of it happens.
Yeah,
it's like an afterthought almost. That, oh yeah, and this also happened.
Yeah, this is a problem at the camps. But I don't know. See, I'm even yawning. I don't know. But yeah, this one was just very middle of the road for me.
Yeah.
5,
yeah. Middle road.
But now we have one left to talk about.
Anora,
which I am very excited to talk about.
Yes.
That was well, you'll see. But until then, thank you all for watching, and just go with it.
Okay.